Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of In the Pit with Lobo Tigre. Our victim of the day, or our guest of honor, is a Canadian Mining Hall of Fame legendary explorer, former Casey's Explorers League nominee, honoree, Ron Netolitzky. Ron is somebody I've known through my entire career, one of the first people Doug Casey introduced me to a good 15 years ago. And we've made money with Ron, we've lost money with Ron, it's been an up and down ride, but Ron has a sense of market cycles and picking up good properties and putting them into vehicles and watching them go. And there's a new Ron Netolitzky play, so that's why we're having this conversation. Ron, why don't you tell us about Mass Gold, your new company, what you're doing, what you hope to achieve with it?
Well, I kind of look at Saskatchewan as the place I started in the industry 50 some years ago, and I worked in the Larange Gold Belt actually in the 60s. So I'm back going to my roots, and I look at this Larange Gold Belt has been actually a kind of a disappointment to me, because I had Gold and Rural Resources, which was the first effort in the Larange Belt. We had some successes, and then I moved on because personality conflicts. They're actually good friends of mine now. I still go and drink beer with them. That's the way the world runs. And I feel that there's a very good, and I have to really thank SSR for making Saskatchewan more realistic, because it's hard to prove to people that Saskatchewan is a gold play. And the reason that I feel that Saskatchewan has always been left in the background was the politics of the province. And the remoteness of the Larange Gold Belt was an extremely remote gold belt until the mid-1960s. And then there was a number of very extreme left-wing socialist governments that had been in and out of that place. But the people there running it now, I think they learned a lot of good lessons. And they are trying to run a decent business, and even with the socialists, you could do business with them.
Yeah, one would think if you can mine uranium, of all the things, of all scary metals, if you can mine uranium in Saskatchewan, gold has to be relatively benign.
Yeah, gold is benign, and the age of the rocks is actually of interest to me, because they are lower Proterozoic, to use the old terms. I even the slightly younger term amphibian age rocks, and then now they got new words for them. But I pretend to be a prospector now. I don't have to keep up with the current scientific stuff anymore. And the rocks are lower Proterozoic, approximately the same age as West Africa, and a lot of things. And you know, you can say the one problem we have with the Larange Gold Belt, you can always go up there and find gold occurrences, but it's got a bad reputation of never having size. Well, if you find all those hundreds and hundreds of gold occurrences, you'd think statistically there's going to be some big ones. Now, the same geology belt goes into the Black Hills, and Homestake is actually the same age rocks. It's part of the same belt of rocks. Now, Homestake is a world-class deposit. West Africa is world class. All we need is one. And I'm not greedy anymore. And in the in-between, I think you can make sense out of doing what I started to do with Golden Band. And I think we failed because of management issues and people that didn't know how to run a business. And I have to take the blame as the chairman at the time.
Well, let me ask you about that, because when this first came up on my radar, I looked at the corporate presentation and I looked at the properties, and they all rang a bell. It reminded me very much of Golden Band, and I remember that you did get the drills turning. You did do some exploration. You bought your $1 mill, your used mill for $1, and while waiting for that big Homestake style discovery, the idea was to aggregate known gold zones and put something together that would work from multiple nearby deposits. Logically that made sense. There was some exploration success, but no smoke and big winners. But then it all just seemed to unravel. What happened, and what will be different this time? Why will Mass succeed where Golden Band didn't?
Well, first thing is that hopefully I will never have a mine contractor as bad as the ones we've had in Golden Band, and management of the people. I thought I had hired a very good fellow with a Western Australian experience of using central mills. And when I look back at it now, the fundamental mistake we made is we had a cyanide mill. And when you look at our asset bag package here, we have the Greywacke deposit, which we took a bulk sample in, which was quite successful. We made a good money, except the bankruptcy stole some of it from me. And we have a small tonnage there and a very interesting target in the Greywacke that smells potential size. And the grade is good. And what happened there was that ore, 84% of the gold came out in the gravity circuit. And I think that is the case for a lot of that belt. And so what were people doing, including myself, trucking 40 or 50 miles with lower grade ore that didn't make economic sense? Like the last people that ran Golden Band when I was well gone, they actually mined 1 to 2 gram material and shipped it 40 or 50 miles, and that's why they went $100 million plus in the hole. How can you
But
go
if you can
100
concentrate with gravity that much, you could even do that like in pit. I mean,
Well, you can run it with a Nelson concentrator that you can move in. It's easy and benefit. It doesn't have any liabilities and a lot of the ore body mineralized zones we're drilling along this belt here, they're in slightly different rocks than the Laurent Gold Belt, which most of Golden Band was in. They're in what you call the Kissimmee Gneisses, but they're basically adjacent to a major structural break called the Clennon Fault Zone. And major structural breaks, nowadays we got some fancy new words for it. We look at this as, we call it orogenic gold. And you hear that word a lot, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just shear zone gold related to metamorphic rocks. It's my whole life. It's kind of looking at those things, and a little bit of epithermals. But in Saskatchewan, I don't expect to see an epithermal. And I think the mistake we made was we had a cheap mill, and what I was working on in Golden Band was we were going to build a 2,000 ton a day mill up in the north end of the belt, because that's where we had a lot of the low grade deposits. The economics of the gold business went wrong on me. The gold price collapsed and the price of mills doubled or tripled. So that was a no-go. So we decided to go and take the mothball mill that was cheap, refurbish it, and start using it. And it was working okay for the first while, until, but we had about, I'd say maybe 20 deposits kind of indicated and outlined with partial drilling. What we did was we took the ones that were the nearest to the road and most accessible, and started running them through the mill. Don't ignore that. It's my wife's line. And when we took that through the mill, it was a bloody disaster. Because if you can get 80% of the gold, why would you spend all the money to ship something 40 miles or 40 kilometers is the best? So I think the central mill concept is essentially the same thing that SSR is doing with the old Santoy project. And I was instrumental, and we worked on Santoy. That's where the name came from. That became a uranium company. And Santoy Resources is where SSR is getting most of their juice these days. And what it took to work that out was those structures, we found them on surface, on most of them. We drilled above them and below them because they were plunging at about 20 degrees. It took one hell of a lot of holes to figure out why we kept missing the damn things when we went step deeper. And that's geology for you. First time, you may not succeed. Second time, you may not. So we're working this belt, which we follow the road. And the reason I'm following the road here is cost. Our business got damn expensive. I remember when I started, we'd be able to raise money and go a few years before we had to go back to the market. Well, nowadays, you don't get much luxury. You get one shot at this, barely, and you're gone. So, I feel that there is a room in this play we put together of putting a central mill into the south area. Grey Whack, I think, could be a standalone area. And I'm like, we picked up more land in the belt because I think, I think this business is going to turn. And I'm not doing this for $1,200 gold. If gold's $1,200 is.
Well, actually, let's talk about that for a second. It was another one of the questions I had looking at what you're doing. I understand buy low, sell high. I understand that when market is, I think the technical description is crappy. When the market is crappy, it's a good time to pick up properties. Prices are low. You can put a portfolio together. But why launch a new junior Explorer Co at this time when it's so hard for people to get traction? Why not keep it private? Raise some money, keep it private, pick up the properties, and then when the market's booming, go public.
I would have loved to do this, but actually Mass Gold was a public company, Massa Praia. I didn't start it. And we actually went and bought 49% of Grey Whack from other juniors that were partners of Massa Praia. Massa Praia was one of the companies that started in Indonesia in the famous rush. So it's an Indonesian name. So I got tired of pronouncing it, so we changed it to Mass Gold recently. So it was already in public vehicles, and it was in joint venture with Golden Band, because I was actually took over Mass Gold, paid way too much for it with some of my friends, so we were stuck with the vehicle. But it's a tight vehicle. Right now we have 41 million shares out, and I'm over 20%. When I look at my friends and me, and other people involved, we're probably 60+% of the company. So it is a quasi-private company, and this is the problem with it, is we need to become a public company. But we're not. The market isn't ready for us to become public.
Well, that segues. I want to ask you about the properties and the work you want to do, but since we're talking about it, let me go ahead and ask. Obviously you pull up the chart and it trades by appointment. If you can even get an appointment. So there has to be a plan to get more of a float out there. Do you and the other insiders, start gently selling or sharing with institutions, or what is the plan to get some trading volume going here?
The killer happened with the bankruptcy courts. When Golden Band went into bankruptcy, I was on the other side, and I had a joint venture, and I was this CEO of Mass Gold at the time, Massa Praia, and the bankruptcy judge ruled that this asset went to Procon, the mine contractor. So Golden Band went there, which was controlled by CAMC, which is a Chinese quasi-government public company, and they have been a nightmare in my bonnet. And we're in the process of doing exploration right now, and we believe we've done it right this time. Bankruptcy court disagreed with me. The last effort I have to try to get control. We're clearly recognized as the operator and a minimum of 50% of the assets. But in reality, we're in the process of earning 100% of this. And we have been negotiating with them without success to become basically to buy them out instead of having to do it this way. But this way is fine. We've got a joint venture agreement. It's one of those things that are left over from the uranium industry that they use, and was originally in an SMDC Cameco joint venture agreement. So they're kind of bulletproof. They got a lot of legalese in them, but they're well structured, and we're in the process of, I think, getting control. And I can't go and raise serious money from anybody, and I can tell you that we got at least 50% of this asset, but we think we got 100. Nobody's going to buy the stock, and I don't want to go around selling that stuff. So we're looking at this last bit of work getting backstopped by my sister company Euros. It's mainly in the States because it's a cash shell. It had cash in it, or assets. In Mass Gold we had properties. We raised a little bit of money, then I looked at it and I said, this is wrong. I can't tell people the real blue sky. I have to get control of this. And there's we took on a recent properties in, and we're still looking for properties in Saskatchewan because there's a few other projects in the same area here that would fit with us. But I'd rather be able to go in, and I'm not interested in doing a 50% where I got a partner that I don't like. It's I don't want to become engrossed at any more lawyers and legal. I just want to go
Okay, so the answer is we finish sewing up the deals. We get to where we need to be, and then we go on the roadshow and market to the public and get that
That's
going.
right. Okay. Yeah, we will do everything we can to get this done without asking the general public to take the risk with us. That's our business.
Okay, so then in terms of, other than the boardroom work there to get that all cleaned up, what do you do with properties this year? Are you going to do any work, or is it just minimum to keep everything in good standing while you take care of the corporate side?
Okay, we have actually drilled one of the properties, which we call Point, which is in our advertising stuff or our marketing book. And the Point deposit, as like drill programs, you generally learn a bit more, and we're still waiting for final results and final interpretation. But I think we're going to have to drill the holes and some more holes and different orientation. The plunge, I think we got the plunge wrong. And I've watched this before, so I'm getting very sensitive to plunge. We also drilled a second property called North Lake, and that result, we have everything in North to do an up-to-date 43-101, and the purpose of these holes was to get us there and also to do the metallurgy, because I really believe North Lake is a low-grade deposit. It's got some high-grade, it's got high-grade zones, but it's got good intervals there, well over 100 meters plus a gram, and right off the highway, close to our North deposit. They're only about 3 miles apart, and there's another few deposits in that area that are with only a few miles from each other. And if they all are gravity amenable for high recovery, there's a story, because we've got infrastructure. We've got power in the area. We've got roads, and we got towns. We don't need to do any fancy stuff and be in the middle of nowhere. And obviously, we would like to have a better gold price, but I think it'll fly in the $1,300 to $1,500 range. But I think this is coming. I don't see anything in there. This world scares the Jesus out of me.
Well, that's why I became the Independent Speculator. I think it's coming too, and I want to be able to not just write about it, but I want to be able to invest in the next big resource bull. So our minds are on the same page there. Okay, so you are working on the corporate front, and you are doing some exploration work on the properties. What's that going to cost, and how much money do you have in the bank?
Well, we have zero in the bank as usual, but it's going to cost us, I think, to finish the next phase here, probably another 500,000 or 600,000, and we have a backstop, and it's called Eros, and the company's boards have to sit down, and they have the independence. They're doing their own thing. It has to be good business, but Eros has some need of exploration expenditures because their money came from Boss Power, from the BC government when they paid us off for screwing us out of our uranium deposit, which they saved us from having a uranium deposit that's non-economic.
So is that like flow through? It has to be spent on exploration?
Well, we can shut, because it was an expropriation. We have 10 years from when they took it, expropriated it, to fund essentially shelter as much of the $10 million we got as possible. And we need to shelter another 3 million. But I think we'll make a good chunk, and we've already had a small investment in Mass Gold. But we would love to have a little more shelter. It makes business sense because Eros is a holding company, and its assets obviously get the discount. And we're working on projects in Nevada and California that hopefully will end up with other public companies and be financed. So we have shares in other companies so Mass Gold is going to be a beneficiary of getting the tax write-offs that Eros needs in part, and also that will allow us to get 100% what we think of the property. So the money.
So you have options here. It's not like you're over a barrel and you have to give people, the famous 5-year, full warrant or something like that to finance.
If I'm going to give away those things, I think I'll give them away to myself. But I don't. I like treating all shareholders equally, and the shareholders that we have in Mass Gold, some of them have been long suffering and they've been stuck here a long time. But it's, you can tell by the trading, they're waiting. But they look at me and say, "Ron, you're getting a little old. You better hurry up."
Well, we all hope you'll be making discoveries for years to come. But so the way this came together, we have all these, complicated legal proceedings, other companies, pieces from here and there. Is there a figure in your head, given how much of your own blood, sweat, and tears and cash you've put into the various moving parts over the years? Could you estimate how much hard dollar skin in the game you have here? Like, how much have you yourself put into this?
Well, if I take the losses I ate on Golden Band, which we won't bother with, I've got I got more money than I'm going to get back in the game. I know that. I've probably got.
But suffice it to say, you're highly motivated to see the shares deliver for shareholders.
Well, I'm very motivated. And we get motivated for one thing: return on capital. So we always look at it. Any public company I've ever done is for the share appreciation. I'll take my chances. And the years go by, you don't get very many of the winners, but when they come, they pay you back pretty good.
Yes, that's the classic Rick Roll, the 20 baggers amortize the losses line. Okay, so looking forward, the deliverables, what you're working on, we have corporate deliverables, which normally is kind of boring, but in your case, if that clears up 100% ownership in interesting assets and so on, these are things that can move the needle for you this year. But we also have exploration, and then there's financing news that would relieve fears there. And once you have the dominoes lined up, that's when the roadshow starts, and hopefully we start to see the trading volume pick up. Is that a fair summary?
I would say so. I believe you have to get the assets, and then you have to. I think we got a viable one here, because I can get a long ways there without huge money, compared to BC and being in the Golden Triangle. I know how much it costs to work up there. It is horrible, horrendous. We've got a lot of years of experience, and I've got good access to geologists that have almost as much years of experience in that Larange belt as I do. So we know that we're going to be able to do the geology right. But this time around, I want to make sure we do the engineering and operations right. It's a harder part. And one of the problems you get with junior companies is usually the cycle is not in favor of you making money as an operating company, because most of the juniors only get money to build mines at the top of the market. So they almost when I look back at all the failures I had, I said, oh, well, the gold price dropped in half. I guess I wouldn't have built it if I knew the gold price would be half. So this is hopefully this time around I'll be gone through a couple cycles on this stuff already. We'll be in the right part of the cycle.
Well, for what it's worth, I'm very bullish. I think this is the right time to be pulling assets together and getting going. So hopefully, that for whatever that's worth, I think so. Just one last question. It occurs to me. Say that one of our viewers out there likes the idea of getting in on the ground floor of a new Ron Netolitzky play, but there's no volume. Is there somebody if somebody wanted to build a significant position in this company, could they just call up the number on the website and arrange a cross or something? Or what would somebody like that do?
They would find cooperation from us, either as a placement or as we could knock on a few people that have been following this story, see if they're willing to lighten up.
You know where most of those shares are, so you know what doors to knock on.
I know where, as 60-70% of the shares are, I would say.
Okay.
And a lot of those people have been playing with me for a long time.
Okay, well, Ron, you've been a very good sport answering some very obnoxious questions on my part, so I want to give you the last word. Any final comments that you want to leave our audience with?
Well, I think I think the most important decision-making point one has in this business is going to be politics in the next while. And I look at political jurisdictions, and my God, they scare the hell out of me in Canada. And as I say, I feel as safe in Saskatchewan as anywhere. And I like what's happening in the States as far as politics. I mean, all of a sudden, like we were stalled for a year, a couple of years on my work down in Nevada, by the U.S. Navy coming in wanting to have their firing range expanded. So we had 2 years moratoriums, and I've had 2 years of dead time on mass gold in Saskatchewan waiting for legal stuff to be decided. So we've been sitting on the sidelines in both of my main companies for 2 or 3 years waiting for stupid things to be resolved. I think they're coming to the cusp, and I hope the gold price timing is going to be right for it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yet. We haven't had the gold price move.
Got it. Okay. Thank you again for your time. Much appreciated, and best of luck with it. It sounds exciting.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Louis. It's always good.